Billie Eilish, Hit Me Hard and Soft, album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest album, the third album of Miss Billie Eilish, singer, songwriter. By now you probably know who she is. She's been at it for a while now, and in her early days, the days of like the Don't Smile at Me EP era, I just was not into what Billie was doing. It was just a little too subtle for my liking. I was not into the production on this thing, and overall I just kind of didn't get the hype, and leading up to her debut album I was not that excited for it, but her debut album, When We Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go, I thought was pretty decent. I mean, I personally don't think it lived up to the hype that it was given leading up to it, but overall, yeah, I actually really like this thing. The singles are just overly decent modern pop tracks, and a lot of the production is genuinely edgy at times. Now, I know that I'm just kind of in the minority here, but I've always enjoyed her follow-up, Happier Than Ever, just a little bit more. I thought the production was a lot cleaner, the sort of elegant, loungy vibes of this record I thought were really classy, and not only that, but Billie's vocals were the star here, and I always kind of thought that that's where they should be. I enjoyed the album a lot more at the end of the day. Now, leading up to this record, I was very curious to see where Billie would go, especially since she did not drop any singles, which is usually the sign that this artist is going to go for a pretty drastically different sound, which she does on this album. As a matter of fact, this album is a pretty big departure for her. She goes for a sort of dreamy, very nocturnal pop on this album, and a lot of it's pretty decent. And a lot of it is pretty stripped down. Take, for example, this album's intro, Skinny, but honestly, I'll just say right off the bat, sometimes less is more, and that is absolutely the case with this intro track. It is beautiful. I love the starlit, very dainty instrumental, and just how heavenly Billie's vocals come across. It's really sweet, it's really tender, and like I said, Billie sounds great. I feel like more than ever, her vocals are the focal point. And let me tell you, a track like this, a couple of years ago, could be incredibly boring from Billie Eilish, but honestly, I think it's really graceful, and she does it a lot of justice. And if that wasn't enough, with Chihiro up next, I'm completely enamored and on board with this sound. This takes me back to a more subtle time in Billie's discography, but instrumentally, production-wise, this is so just clean and really beautifully done. And her vocals, they are absolutely divine. They have done nothing but grow over the last few years. It's an elegant tune that doesn't seem hastily put together. Every single detail about this track, from the production to the instrumental, is right where it should be. Also, the later synth work, or I should say the sort of progressive synth work that almost sounds ripped out of John Carpenter's stuff, is really tasty as well later on in the track. And you know what? It really doesn't lose any of its luster. Even though this track goes over 5 minutes, it doesn't get boring, and it very easily could. It's enchanting and it's whimsical, and even though she still does have a very signature sound, this album is very different for her, and she sounds very confident with it. Birds of a Feather I really do love as well. This track is absolutely adorable, for one, and B, it's good enough to be a single. The sort of dreamy, very Twilight rhythms are just so easy to get caught up in, and her vocals continue to steal the show. And lyrically, I'm still just kind of shocked by her ability to just put the sounds of young love to tape. And her vocals, while they are just really great in general, they seem to just be tailor-made for these beats, and that's a good thing. And also, Wildflower, if it's not my favorite track here, it sure is a runner-up. I mean, I think of Billie's earliest days and kind of how I felt upon her ballads at the time, which were easily, I thought, some of her worst tracks. And then I hear a track like this, and I'm absolutely stunned. Lyrically, this is just so tasteful, it's so visual, and it's once again another tale of young love and heartbreak, and there's a lot of them on this album, but they are also very universal. And her vocals, they are absolutely sweet on the ears, and they bring this track together wonderfully. Also, Billie shows that she's maturing musically and instrumentally as well, because the second half of this track is gorgeous. It's great to see. But here's my thing. While the highs on this album, I would argue, are much higher than anything on Happier Than Ever, consistency-wise, that was a much more consistent record. The thing is, this is a big, bold new sound for Billie, and a lot of these tracks, while not bad, just have things about them that really bother me. Like Lunch, for example. A lot of people love this track. It is a single now, and honestly, it's a little too bouncy and bubbly for me. I mean, I don't necessarily mind that, but a lot of this track reminds me of what I didn't like about her early work. And lyrically, it is adorable and really likable, and the final minute is really enjoyable as well. It's actually really progressive in that portion. I just feel like overall this isn't a very consistent track. And the greatest, I think, is the biggest weak spot on this record. I don't know, this track is just a little too amateurish for me. I mean, compared to the other tracks on this album, this seems like, I don't know, like it's very much on the cutting room floor. I mean, the soft, strummed guitar, it comes off more annoying than anything, and lyrically, by the end of this track, it's just okay. And like other tracks here just seem like such complete thoughts, and then I hear this, not progressing, just sort of meandering. I think it's the worst track here. L'Amour de ma vie, also, or The Love of My Life, is also just really average. I mean, the whole first leg of this track is one of the most awkward and clumsy tracks from Billie that I've heard in a while. And I mean, it does pick up into a sort of jazzy, breezier tune. Instrumentally, I don't hate it, but lyrically, I think there's a lot more stronger tracks here. But I will say this, that electronic beat that pops in, that sort of electropop beat, I should say, that pops in the final 2 minutes, I was clinging to that sucker for dear life. And Bittersweet, I mean, I feel like I'm so let down by this track. I mean, the intro to this track is stunning, this massive wall of synths. But the rest of this track is just kind of okay. I mean, the swelling synths at the hook and Billie's vocals, they're really good. But instrumentally, it's once again really below average. I mean, it's not terrible. I don't absolutely hate it, but nothing about this track is clinging to me. I mean, Billie's swagger and confidence absolutely carries this project, but like I said, while the highs of her last album are certainly not as high as this, that's definitely a much more consistent album, and it's just really frustrating because she clearly still has a lot to offer. I mean, look at The Diner. This is one of the best deep cuts here. The cinematic edge, the visual lyrics. I love this. Billie's performance is charismatic as hell, and this hook, while freakish and weird, is one of the most infectious here. There's something very intoxicating about this track, and I'm all for it. And Blue, as a finale, not only is it the best track here, it should very well be a single because it's one of Billie's best in a while. I don't know what it is about this track, but there is something so immediate about it. It feels like the first 9 tracks of this album were all a lead up to this. I don't know why, but this hook is just hitting me so hard, and lyrically, this feels like the culmination of every feeling on display on this album. This whole thing just feels so progressive, so right for this album. This is a tough one for me because, like I said, I feel like when it comes to this compared to her last album, Happier Than Ever, this album has much higher highs. But the thing is, consistency-wise, this is not her best effort. And with a shorter track list and shorter run time, there's much more margin for error. Yeah, a lot of the material here is really good, and I'd still take it over anything on like the new Taylor Swift album for anything. But even the worst tracks here, you know, they have these big glaring holes in them. Billie's definitely onto a new interesting sound with this album, and if she cleans it up just a little bit, it could be tremendous. But for now, I'm feeling like a very strong 6 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give me a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.